Hello everyone. So I am back again with another work in progress video for my 1/60th scale Wing Zero. And I don't remember exactly what I left off with the last time, but I do remember a few things I showed. I remember I was showing that I was removing seam lines off of pieces like this. They may look a little rough right now, but they are, for the most part, pretty smooth, and once some paint is on this, it shouldn't show up at all. And I've done that for some of these wing pieces here, the connectors for the binders. Done it for these little shoulder gatlings. There used to be a seam line running right there, but I cleared that off. And there's another one of those. I've done these shoulder bits similarly. They still look a bit rough, but again, once I've got some paint on there, that won't matter. And this is going to be flat coated anyway. Like the whites, the reds, and the blues are all going to be flat coated. But I'm thinking of doing something else with the yellow and the internal frame bits. But I'll explain that later. Anyway, I've gotten the seam line removal on this done okay. Like, it looks like there's gaps, but that's just because I was using super glue, and it's transparent, so it has filled these gaps. It just doesn't look like it. But anyway, throw some primer on that, and I'll see how it looks then. And last but not least, in terms of seam line removal for now, are these leg joints, or the knee joints. And I can tell you right now, I have probably spent more of my time on this project working on these knee joints than I have in probably any other part. And it is principally because of this section here, running all the way down and back. That used to be sort of a recessed groove area, and it had a seam line running through it just down the middle, like there. Now, in retrospect, it may have just been easier to just get some sandpaper on a toothpick or something and just scrub away the panel line after enough sanding. But I wanted to go ahead and try something different. So I used some of this Squadron white putty. Not the best stuff in the world because it dries really fast. And when they say fast, I mean it's like 10 seconds in and you can barely work with it. So you gotta smooth this stuff on fast, and it's gonna be chunky and troublesome. But after it cures, dries and cures, you can sand it down and you can get a pretty decent finish. It's not perfect, mind you, but for my purposes I think it'll do, especially after I put some primer down on that. And if nothing else, this serves as a useful experiment for working with that kind of putty. So I have filled in that detail, which I don't think I will really miss. And I've removed the rest of the seam lines off of that. I actually used my sandpaper down in here. I managed to scrub that off pretty good, so the seam line is gone on there. And otherwise, I think this is about as much as I am really going to put into these pieces, because if you look at what it's like assembled, you're barely going to see these parts anyway, and I have just spent too much time on them as it is. So I'm going to prime these up and maybe polish that primer up a good bit, and then apply some gloss black. And for the majority of these like joints and hands and stuff, I'm going to try to use this Alclad stainless steel. It's a pretty nice color. I've only used it on a brush because I can't airbrush right now. But I've applied that on some gloss black, and I kind of like the way it looks. It's close to being chrome, but it's darker. And it should look pretty nice on this, but I'm going to have to get these looking pretty shiny if they're going to turn out right. And I think I can. But anyway, that's that. And speaking of polishing, I have done a little bit of work on this chest jewel here. And I've set apart a little bit of footage that I can show you to explain how I actually achieved a smoother finish, because even though you can kind of see a few scratches here and there, when I took it out of the box it was a lot worse. I mean, you'll see in the footage. But I can go ahead and show you what I did to help improve it to as much of a shine as I have right here. So here you can see the big scratch I was talking about. Really kind of apparent. So I did want to get rid of that. And what I remembered was that I had seen a tutorial a while ago from some guy who had used toothpaste on a paper towel and was able to scrub out the scratches and fogginess out of his headlights. And since I figured they're both made out of clear plastic, these pieces here and the headlights, I figured the same principle would apply, using the toothpaste as something like a mild abrasive to remove scratches and generally create a smoother surface. So, as you can see, however, it does leave the piece here looking a little bit foggy. That's normal, that's to be expected. But you do, however, notice that the big ugly scratches are gone. And so, after I had removed the scratches with the toothpaste, I took a paper towel, wetted it with some water, and began removing the excess toothpaste. And when I had done so, I noticed that the piece had turned out a lot more clear and a lot more shiny. So, after having removed all of the toothpaste residue, I then proceeded to dry the part off, and you could see not only that the surface is nice and shiny and smooth, but it's also still a bit foggy, but not as bad as before. So, the last thing I wanted to try to do to really make this piece shine is I decided to apply a gloss top coat. Now at first I'd thought I wanted to use this All-Clad 2 Aqua Gloss Clear, but after having done a couple tests I decided that the Pledge Future Floor Acrylic would be a much better gloss coat for this job, and I actually just applied it with a Q-tip. Now here again you can see the scratch as it came straight out of the box, and now you get to see how it turned out after all of my polishing and gloss coating. It looks not quite perfect, but definitely better, and it is almost completely transparent, very, very gem-like and lens-like, which is exactly the effect I was going for. And again, I did both sides to really enhance the effect. And I am pretty pleased with the way it turned out. So, with that out of the way, that's not all I have to show about the chest. Now, as you're probably aware, there is an LED unit for this kit. Comes with one already. And the one it comes with is actually a red LED. I've tried it out, it looks nice, but it wasn't what I was going for. I kind of like the idea of the red though, like as an activation of the Zero system, but again, it just wasn't what I wanted. I wanted to do something to take it a little above and beyond what you would do with a normal 1/60th scale Wing Zero kit. So I actually placed an order for a new set of LEDs. And I don't know how well this is going to show up, so let me try to turn off my light here a little bit. And here we go. It's this crazy flashing, glowing, transitioning LED that has red, green, and blue light. And though I think this is kinda cool, especially on camera, the speed that it goes and all this flashing business isn't exactly what I had in mind, but I still think it's kinda cool. But what I did was I went ahead and I actually ordered a different set of LEDs, and that will be actually a 7-color LED light. And that should transition a bit more smoothly, I think, but I'm not really sure, and I won't be sure until I get them. Probably won't be too long before I do, so I should be able to test those out and figure out if I want to replace what I have in here with my new ones. But even if those new ones don't really work out or aren't what I prefer, I think this would still look pretty cool. And like, let's say you're turning off the lights and you've got a good coat of paint on this so there's no light leakage, and all you see are these flashing red and green and blue-green lights. I think that's pretty cool. So, anyway, to turn it off, you got this lever, and the trick is you've got to get this plastic in between the battery itself and that contact there. But if you just sort of try to move it, it usually doesn't want to work. You kind of have to push down and then slide it in, because you got the spring down here, and you have to depress that in order to sandwich this plastic in between your contacts. But I don't know how easy that's going to be once I've put the rest of the back and the backpack on, but I'll figure that out when I get to it. And anyway, I figure that's about enough work for the chest for now. I'll do more later. But I figured that was cool to show. And I've done a couple other little things here and there, like mostly this wing binder here. I've got the seam line all glued up. I may still want to go and fill in a little bit of it, because some of it isn't like extruding from the gap. There's still a little bit of a seam in there, so I'll touch that up and sand it and get it looking nice and smooth. And it's already got this connector bit. These are for the actual like wing flaps that expand. And then you got your thruster that'll glue on right down there, and this is where your little connector goes. Or it's like that, I think. And so you can sort of position it however. Pretty cool. And one more thing. The Buster rifle. I have done quite a bit of work on this as well. I remember in the last video I did, I toyed with the idea of removing the pegs and the holes which are meant to hold these rifles together. I put magnets in there so they could go together without using the pegs, because the pegs and the holes really didn't fit together very well. They just fell apart. And that's why I initially put the magnets in. But then I figured, if the magnets are doing all the work anyway, why not just get rid of the pegs and fill up the holes and make the rifles look nicer once they're separated? So that's what I did. And as you can see, it looks okay. And it works okay. I mean, it's not sliding around a lot, and I mean, I gotta like really turn it and then it'll pop off. but it's on there. It's not going anywhere, and you just kind of gotta line it up properly, and it works really well. And what I used, well, first of all, I just used my nippers and cut these down a bit, then I shaved it off with a little bit of a hobby knife, and then I filed it with the sanding sticks I got here, and then followed that up with some fine grit sandpaper, moving all the way to super fine, and then went on to actually polish it with some extra fine buffing stick, and it isn't perfect, and I might go back and try to flatten it out just a little more, but it's pretty darn good. It's pretty flush. And I did that up here too, because there's another peg, and I think that turned out a lot better. You see it now because of, you know, being bare plastic. It's made more smooth because it's a scar mark or something. But anyway. And on the other rifle, I filled up the holes there with a little bit of this Milliput epoxy putty. This stuff is really cool. You basically mix it like any kind of epoxy. It's got two parts. You cut off equal sections of the sticks you've got in here and mix them together. You knead them together like a, well, like a blue tack or something. And then once that's all properly mixed, you push it into whatever area you're trying to fill, or you can even use it to sculpt parts or pieces, or you know, you could carve it. Like I wound up with an excess block of it, and I mean, this stuff is rock hard. You could sand this, you could shave this. I could do something with this if I really was so inclined, but I've got so much of the rest of it that if I really need more for filling, you know, I don't have to worry about the waste of that. But anyway, it is, again, it isn't flawless. Like right here, I've got a little bit of a dip where the edge is, so I might fill that up with a little bit of super glue, just so I don't have to go through mixing more putty and wasting a big batch, so that I can just use that tiny little sliver there. It'll be a little easier to work with too. But for the most part, it's got good shine, it fills well, it's very solid, and once you throw some paint on that, you'd never know it was there. So, there's also one more thing I gotta show. This section here is where the Buster rifles fit onto the shield, on these little tab sections. Now, what I was concerned about at first was the fact that this was just a big gaping hole that led all the way back through, like, all that internal stuff. You saw the rough edges, you know, the little circular molding things, the pegs, and that big gaping thing. It looked like garbage, and it would definitely have cheapened up all the work I would be putting into this rifle. So I noticed once I put this peg in here that it did not go any farther. If I can just pop this off here. It did not go any farther than the limit of that actual slot. It didn't protrude into the rifle anymore. So really that excessive gaping hole was not even functional or necessary. So what I did was I took a little bit of plow plate and glued that on there, so that once the rifles are apart, you don't see this gigantic gaping hole, just sort of a slot. So it's a nice fix. It was easy. Just cut it out and shave it down and glue it on. And So that is about as much as I have done on the rifles so far. Still got to remove the pegs and sand those clean and make them look good, and I got to remove the seam line, but after I actually glue my batteries and or my magnets in place, they're just secured with blue tack for now, but I'll glue those on with epoxy or super glue or something. And other than that, things are going pretty good. And I do believe that is about it for now. I suppose I might go into some detail on how I'm going to paint this rifle. If you look on the source material or the box, it's sort of a two-colored rifle, and I was thinking of painting the primary color of this rifle something of a lighter metallic, maybe more of a matte finish metallic almost. If I go that route, this Tester's Floquil gunmetal would work. It's kind of bluish and sort of a matte silver finish. I mean, it's shiny, but it's not like Alclad high gloss chrome shiny. So it would contrast then against other parts of the rifle, like here, which represent more internal frame, or like the barrels of the rifle, or the little sections there. I would do those up in the Alclad stainless steel. Obviously I would gloss black the whole gun first, and then do the various masking to hit each piece with the right color. And I might like do just some flat black in a few areas like that, just to show like that it's a vent or something. But then I come to the like gold parts, or the yellow parts that are going to be on top of there, around on the chest, on the V-fin, and etc. And what I was thinking of doing was actually an Alclad gold with either this chrome as the base or the bright silver as the base. And then I would apply thin layers of a clear orange on top of that until I achieved a really nice saturated gold color. And it would be super shiny and kind of separated from the flat blues and whites and reds. So that's kind of my vision for it right now. Except there's one more thing I gotta talk about, I almost forgot. And it kinda involves the milliput here. If you look here, I've got one of the lower arm assemblies sort of put together here. And what you'll see here is this ugly looking poly cap just exposed bare on the part. Now, this is the same on both arms, and it's there so that you can plug your shield into either arm. Well, that's fine. Maybe I want my shield on the right arm instead of the left, or vice versa. And if you want to do that, so be it. But in the meantime, I don't want to have this ugly gaping hole there. So what I've been experimenting with is taking plow plate and sticking that as like a cover for that. So you'd still have some panel lining going on here, sort of to show the separation there, but you wouldn't have that big gaping hole showing or that ugly poly cap showing. Now, I don't want to have this stuck in there really tight either, because then you'll never be able to get it out. But I also can't have it falling out. And that was just sort of a prototype piece I shaped up just to see if it would even work. And it does, but it's not shaped as well as I would like. So I've got a couple other little pieces of plow plate cut out and ready to go that are just about the right size. They just need to be refined to the shape they need to be. And then I thought, a good way to secure them in place would be to actually have a peg attached to those covers, and then have like enough of a gap between the covers and the wall of the arm here, so that if I need to, I can sort of pick it out, but it'll still look good. So what I did with some of the leftover Milliput was I fashioned a couple of pegs that'll fit in there, and they need a little machining, a little fitting. This one's pretty good, but if I flatten this off to the right length and everything, that'll fit in there and should look pretty good. Again, I'm not looking for a super tight fit, just something that won't like fall out of there. So I'll play around with that and see how that works, but that is the last thing that I think I have to show. So anyway, guess that's it for now, and hope you liked the video. Thanks for watching, and until the next time, catch you later, everybody.